So that was helpful.
Talk to me a little bit, and this is where we're talking about your experience, your human experience. I also want to kind of, point out to people and remind them you're a therapist yourself, a couples therapist. And so in talking about grieving and saying goodbye to people, what is important for people to do? So I'm wondering, okay, your dad's on dialysis and you're thinking, gosh, he may not have so much time. At that time, what were you like, this is important for me to say or to do? Like, what was that process like for you?
I think what was important was, I wanted him to know how much I loved him. Like and I remember when I brought it up to him, he's like, Al, like, I get it. Like, it just was like, I didn't need to say the things that I felt like I needed to say, that I wanted to make sure.
He
but
knew.
I think, yeah. And I think that is, like, grief is such, I love these both ands, right? Like, these things are these contradictory.
And I love that you bring that stuff
up.
Oh
my gosh. Like, where so much of life is like holding on to these contradictory truths. And so there was, like with my dad, there was this contradictory truth of, like, he was suffering and he had so much more life than anybody thought he was going to have, and nobody wanted him to go. Like, all those things were true. And I think with grief especially, it's one of those topics where we can get really either or. We can have a hard time holding on to contradictions. Like, if I feel a sense of relief that this person has passed away, then that means I didn't love them. Absolutely not. There can be lots of both and. I am both relieved and devastated.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the work that I would want people to do as they're anticipating a loss, is just making space for all of the feelings that come up, even if they are contradictory or if they feel like they confront a story we have about how grief should look. Whenever we have a should about an emotional experience, that's like a little red flag inside of us saying, like, wait a minute, what is this should doing here? Whose story is it? What belief system does that should come from?
Let me slow you down. I try, whenever I start to get confused, I'm like, there's probably somebody watching who's a little bit confused too. You said whenever we have a should about an emotional experience, and then you're walking us through some questions to kind of challenge our assumption or belief about, and it sounds like you're saying, no, if it's an emotional experience, pay attention to the emotion, let the emotion be, don't talk yourself out of it, experience it, whatever.
Yep.
I want you to finish that thought, and then the question that I'm asking is, but then how do we also say, well, this is what's true? Do you see what my question is? So anyway, you were talking about whenever we are saying a should about an emotional experience.
Yeah. That piece right there, just noticing, I'm doing that thing where I have an emotion and then I attach a story about I shouldn't feel that emotion, or I should feel this emotion instead. So just catching that and bracketing it is really, really important, because it happens quickly, right? Very quickly. An emotion is a bodily state. That's all an emotion is.
Something you feel in your body that...
Yep. It's really physiological. It's rooted in the body. But really quickly, because we as humans make meaning out of everything, we really quickly attach a story that we don't even maybe consciously know we've done. So it's, I feel relief.
What does it mean? I feel relief and...
Oh my God, that means I didn't love the person.
Yeah.
I should not feel relief. That's not an appropriate emotion. Only X kind of person would feel an emotion like that at a time like this. And that all comes in before we even know, and it changes the whole experience of relief. Now we're down some road that has to do with shame or whatever.
All I'm thinking about is my own loss of my mother when I was 20-something, and I can identify with, at the end, when she got sick, and over a period of days, we knew she was going to go, and we were waiting. it's like we were up all night long. And so there, similarly, when she finally went and she was out of pain, and then, you know, the 24-hour vigil had ended, I felt some relief, along with a whole lot of other much more difficult to experience feelings of loss and grief and so forth. That both, and like I was relieved and really, really incredibly sad and numb and angry and on and on. But
do you remember feeling guilty about the relief, or feeling judging yourself for the relief?
yes, yeah, there was that too. And exactly what you're saying, where the thought creeps in. It's like, you're relieved she's gone. You know, like no. The good son would be willing to fight it all. You know, stay up all night for an unending amount of time to experience every last whatever, or whatever the...
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
So I was kind of asking about, I was kind of curious, when did your dad get this idea to be a donor? Do you know? Maybe not a big deal. So, okay, so he's on dialysis, and you're saying some of the things that you wanted to say, which he already knew. That sounds like an important thing. Is that 30?
Yeah.
That sounds like an important thing for people to do if they have that chance, right?
You know what I think blocks it? I think we make this, I think sometimes what keeps us from speaking what we want to speak to somebody who is dying is it's a fear of, if I say these things about the fact that you are dying, it somehow conveys to you that I think you're going to die, that I want you to die, or somehow like it will make it true. Like I think we act
Brings up the uncomfortable truth.
Yeah, we get kind of like this magical thinking of like, if we don't talk about what's happening here, then maybe it won't happen.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes can silence us.
I think it depends on, like, the doctor in me is like, it depends on the person. Where are they at with their own condition? A lot of people are in incredible denial about how little time they have left, and it may be uncomfortable to be the one that's like, hey, I want to say some things. You know, like the implicit being, I don't think you have much time left, and there's some things I want to say.
That's right, and it confronts that. It confronts the denial system.
Yeah.
And if that's a choice a loved one makes, is to say like, I can't speak truth to this person because they aren't able to reckon with their dying, then you don't speak the truth. And you speak it in prayer after the person passes, right? Or you speak it, you go down to the ocean and speak it to the ocean after the person passes,
you
know?
respect that and don't confront them with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's there are entire complicated family systems that I would not pretend to say what somebody should do in that moment. But if that's somebody's intuitive sense, is like, my loved one is so deep in their denial about their how serious this is, and I don't feel comfortable rocking that boat, then you don't. Then fine. Then don't. That's not a wrong. But then you don't. Then I wouldn't want them to do is then beat themselves up after the person dies of regretting that they hadn't said it. What I would want them to do is practice self-compassion of like, no. I don't. It's not a regret situation. You didn't speak your truth because you were coming from a place of deep empathy for the fact that your dying loved one was not interested in hearing any of that.
Yeah.
They were not available. Okay.
I agree with you in that probably inappropriate to be confrontational, especially if somebody's in denial near the end.
Right.
Maybe there's a way to sit down and say some things you want to say. Hey, you know, I really love you. Hey, these are some of the things I really liked, whatever. Without putting the end and saying, goodbye, I've loved having you in my life.
Right, because you are about to die, I'm going to say these things.
Right, and just kind of connecting with what somebody means to you. The thing that...
Do you want to stop?
Let's keep going.
Well, okay. Just to add to this, talking culturally about dealing with death. Did you see the movie The Farewell?
No.
I don't know that movie.
Oh, the Asian...
In Asian culture, if you're given a terminal diagnosis for something and your family knows about it, they won't tell you.
That's right.
Because they think that the trauma, the shock of finding out that you're dying can contribute to your dying.
Right.
And so they have this whole ritual and circumstance that they kind of work around. So it's like, how do different cultures
culturally
deal
with death and how they accept it.
Sure.
We can keep going. I wanted to before I forgot.
Yeah. listening to you talk about what you were saying to your father reminds me of saying goodbye to my own mother. And she died she had kidney cancer, and she had stage 4 kidney cancer, and now I know a lot more about that prognosis than I did before I went to medical school, and I think we were all kind of hoping for more, and then bam, she like died really quick in a weekend, and I didn't say that goodbye. That's haunted me in a way where, how many times have I written that letter? You know, where there's something there that's had to be grieved. Does everybody have to say some kind of goodbye? God, part of me that's gone through it, and as a doctor, I think the real thing is live your life and express that stuff. Don't wait until the end when somebody's dying. Be connected with how you really feel about somebody and expressive of it and that kind of thing. And yeah, I would encourage most people to think about, what do you want to say? Say it. Yeah. Say it while you got it.
What do you think she would say to you if she knew, like if she knew you were carrying a sense of regretting you didn't say what you wanted to say? What do you think she would want you to?
I don't feel like I'm holding on to that thing now. I think I have expressed that enough, but that was a big, and it was, for me, it was kind of the tip of the iceberg of the grief of saying goodbye to all of the hopes and dreams that I had.
Yeah.
That aren't going to happen.
Of what you guys would get to experience.
Yeah, she's never met my daughter.
Right.
She was a nurse who dreamed of practicing together. All of these things where it's just like, you're just like.
Yeah. And so I wonder if there's a way that we get hooked onto the regret of what we didn't say, because it's like, it's the illusion that we have some control over any of it, right? It's like a thing that we imagine, we like put it back on ourselves. I wonder if it's a way that at least initially we kind of bind the massiveness of grief. We kind of bind it by putting it all in the...
Like the illusion we have some kind of control.
Yeah, and then I should have. Like the I should have maybe is easier than just the big nebulous unfolding of like all of the loss of future, you know?
I'm open to that.
I don't know. I was just thinking that as you were saying that about... that maybe there's, you know, and whatever we do, what I remember most about grieving those first like days and weeks was how physiological it was. Like I remember feeling like I was walking through pea soup. Like my body felt like it was like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds. Like it just...
That walking through pea soup means heavy? Oh, like just slogging through.
Like so weighed down.
What was that like for you when he passed?
That was like really like the like I remember being like really caught off guard by how physiological it was.
How much you felt it in your body? You felt heavy and slowly moving. And had you lost other people close? Was that your kind of biggest?
I had lost a sibling of mine. I had lost a sibling to suicide when I was in my 20s, and I had lost grandparents. Yeah. Those were my most immediate experiences.
And then I'm just curious about talk about the things you did beforehand, and then how did you grieve afterwards? I don't mean to pound you too much on
the
grieving, or to go too much into it, but
I think in part the things I did with the medical school were part of how I dealt, like how I grieved was that. I think carrying him with me, like I sort of would put him on my shoulder, you know, like just sort of imagine him there with me. I'd bring him with me. I think also the fact that I was, you know, have been busy with a career and a husband and kids and, you know, sort of just being in my life, which I have a sense would be what he would want me to do. There is a way that like life keeps going, right? I've got kids that have to get to school and I've got clients to see. And so there's a way that I just would kind of like bring him with me. Okay, like this is what we're up to today. And
do you talk to him, and you said you have a sense of his presence? Tell me more about that. What does that mean?
I do. I love, you know, Oprah Winfrey has this thing that she says, when somebody you love passes away, you have an angel that you know by name.
Yeah.
I love that. So I think I often, when I'm like looking for guidance or, you know, I think that's, I don't talk out loud to him.
Yeah.
Not that, but just
You just sense that he's kind of with you. We had another guest, Rachel Markarian, who lost her father when she was young, and she talked about how she's a performer, a dancer, and one thought that was really helpful for her in the grieving was somebody said how now he's got the best seat in the house always. And you can always watch her perform, and she took a lot of comfort in that. I think it's interesting kind of the ways that after a big loss people feel better and stay connected with those who have gone in ways like this. I think can be very helpful.
I remember hearing a story of two women, very, very dear friends, and they both were diagnosed with breast cancer like around the same time. And the first woman passed away. And the second woman, who was still living, had a dream. She was visited by the first woman in a dream. And what the first woman said to her is, like, they both really struggle with being mothers of young children and battling cancer. And so the woman who passed away said in the dream to the woman who is still living, like, don't worry about your children. Like, there's so much more we can do for them on this side. Really beautiful. Like this idea we still get to be involved and connected even when we are in
to give meaning to that.
Different form.
I want to talk about your book in a second.
That's a fun segue, death to sex. How are you gonna do that, Dr. Burchett?
There's nothing I can't do. This is my show.
Let's see it.
Transition anyway.
Make it happen.
You won't even know that it happened. It's so seamless.
It's so seamless. Not
Thank
even
you for
nary a bump.
Thank you for pointing that out to our audience. Otherwise, just would have been along for the ride. I was thinking about my mother donated her body to science too.
She did.
I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to know anything about it. I was like, good, learn from it. And so to listen to you kind of take meaning in and meet someone, I really liked, I liked that. I liked the connectedness to it. I remember my gross anatomy and just having not forgetting that these are people with families and a sense of gratitude that somebody said, hey, I want my body, I want you to learn.
Yeah.
I'm totally donating this to science, when I'm done. But I think in life and in medicine, there's it's easy to forget, to lose the soul and the spirit and the connected meaning to what you're doing, treat people as numbers and cases and whatever, and forget. And just your story of him and how you connected to her, I think kind of brings to life, I don't know, I think it adds a richness to the whole, I really liked that. I liked that whole story. So thank you for sharing that.